like to know what I said, huh? I am Bob, space E, alcoholic addict. I hate Bobby. I mean, I don't trust guys over 40 that want to be called Bobby, Billy, Tommy, Johnny. It's like, come on, man, grow up, for Christ's sakes. It's time. Well, if you're in an obsessive A relationship that's going bad, you can leave your cell phone on if you want. Today, this exact day, is Deborah's 14th birthday, who read the tradition. Which mic is the mic for the... Well, I can only stand in certain positions here. How's that? All right. Now I don't get to see anybody for the rest of the time. I'll take my glasses off. That's all right. One of my rules of my own personal life and sobriety is I try awfully hard not to have conversations with people who aren't in the room, I've wasted so much time over the years with that. I worry. I don't know if anybody else worries, but I worry. And thinking really isn't good for me. It generally means I can never remember thinking that something bad wasn't going to happen to me. So in my sobriety, I celebrated my 39th year last month. Oh, that's not the miracle. The miracle is I got sober at 8. Oh, God, it never goes away, does it? For years and years and years in recovery, anxiety was my drug of choice. Because I could create anxiety all by myself. So I didn't need you, All I had to do is go home, sit down in a chair, and within 45 seconds I could be completely insane. I can do it with the mail without opening the envelope. All I need is an envelope from the IRS and I can go completely berserk. Hide it somewhere so I don't have to open it, leave it there 3 days, worry about it, sweat about it. It calls to me in the middle of the night from under the desk. Finally, I opened it, and instead of the fact I'm going to federal prison, it's a refund check for $3.45. Which means for $3.45, I have just completely wiped out 3 days of my life. And yet, recent experiences have sort of taught me firsthand, in a rather glaring way, there's nothing to worry about. Absolutely nothing to worry about. And this is a good group. I like this group because there's a mix here. There's some of us that have been in institutions where they only gave us tablespoons to eat with. There's some of us who've passed out on the 18th green at Arnold Palmer and embarrassed ourselves and got sober. Just a nice mix of folks here. For the last 2 weeks of last year, I had my daughter with me. She's 13. Over Christmas and New Year's, we had a grand time. just a great time. Went to a big New Year's Eve ball, bought her a gown, man, she looked like $1 million. And it was great orchestra and dinner and dance and, you know, black tie kind of thing, sort of. You can see I quite didn't probably go for the black tie, but I came close. I came close. And after that New Year's thing, 2 days later, January 3rd, I took her home, back down here to their home in Palm Springs, and dropped her off. And turned around, I'm headed back to L.A. I come around a curve on the 60 or 10, I can't figure out which. I haven't really wanted to read the police report yet. Some young girl's had a flat tire in the fast lane. She has turned off her engine and put on her emergency lights. I come around the curve about 55, 60 miles an hour, and there in front of me is a parked car. There were no skid marks. I didn't even have a chance to hit my brakes. Took them 2 hours to cut me out of the car. I was half in, half jammed under the dash. Paramedics balancing me on his knee, telling me everything's going to be okay. I'm a street kid. I will not repeat what I told him, what I thought about his, bullshit. Because everything was not okay. And I have never been in that much pain in my entire life. And thanks be to God, I kept passing out, but I kept coming to at inopportune moments. I came to when they yanked me out from underneath the dash and put me on the board, and the pain just, oh God, I'm one of these street kids that used to run dope. I mean, I can show you a few bullet holes and knife scars and shit, that stuff. Which, let me tell you, is penny ante compared to a good automobile wreck. And I speak, know from where I speak. All my ribs were broken, my one lung was collapsed, my knee was ripped up, my head had really taken a hit, my left hip was fractured all the way up to and including the socket. I don't know what else was wrong. A few other things were wrong, minor shit. I'm laying in the back of the paramedic ambulance, can't talk, can't breathe, can't anything. All I want is something for the pain. They can't give me anything for the pain because they say I got to be, like I am for the doctors, which is not a philosophy I was very thrilled with. And so they're in this paramedic ambulance, and the siren screaming, and they're discussing what hospital to take me to. And they decide Arrowhead. And I'm laying back there next to this paramedic, and I'm going nuts. Absolutely nuts. I don't want to hear goddamn Arrowhead. I want to hear Cedars. I want to hear UCLA. I don't want to hear. I'm dying back here. I don't want to hear Arrowhead. And then I passed out, and that was that. Next time I came to, they were making the incision to shove the tube in the lung to refill it. My timing has always sucked. And then I quietly slipped into a coma for 3 weeks. Friends came to see me. I was in one of these eyes wide open comas, The brain waves weren't doing well. A friend of mine's wife told me last couple nights ago that when I was in this coma, my face was just a mask of fury. And that when one of 3 friends of mine would come, they would spend most of the day and they would put a hand here on my chest so I would know there was someone there. And she said the minute the hand would hit my chest, I would relax. The face would relax. The fury would go away. After I'm in this coma and I'm laying there, and it's wild. It's better than mescaline, let me tell you. Jesus, I went on some trips. But, and some of them were related to what was actually happening, only in a bizarre way. One of my biggest advocates was my ex-wife. And this is unique. I've been married 7 times, and she's the only one I talk to. Well, the others didn't end too well. On too good a note. but this is the mother of our daughter. She marched into the hospital, convinced them she had power of attorney over my health issues, told them what, went to see that what needed to be done got done, what didn't need to be done didn't get done, and that nobody was pulling any, stuff. I mean, I am eternally grateful to her for coming in, and because she's very formidable to deal with. She's extremely beautiful with hair down to her butt, looks like an Indian, and is an artist and nuts. And so she's a handful when she wants to make a point. And I'm in this coma, and I'm laying in soft dirt, clean dirt, and a voice says, "This may be it." And I'm at complete peace. Complete peace. And at one point they brought in my daughter and my family to say goodbye because the brainwaves had taken a dump and everybody figured I was dying. And I thought, well, if this is it, and I was very peaceful, I thought, it's okay. It's perfectly okay. I've had a really good life, man. I've been sober 39 goddamn years. I've had a really good life. I'd love to know if that's the moment I came out of the coma. I don't know. I have no idea. I wrote and produced television for about 30 years, so my opening line when I came out of my coma was, "Change the fucking channel, that's a shit show." I'd like to clean it up for you, but that's what I said when I came out of the coma. And my next line was, "How's Mrs. Bush?" I vote Democratic, and I don't even like him. And thank God one of my friends with a sense of humor was sitting next to the bed holding my hand. He said, "She's downstairs in the car waiting to see you." Well, they moved me from this hospital to another hospital. I'm still bedridden, all that humiliating, terrible stuff in a diaper, and and pain. They're so bad, it hits so quick that they're giving me my morphine shots in my neck. I never thought of that. That really pissed me off. I was thinking, I had morphine for 11 years. I never thought of taking it in the neck, It's an immediate hit, let me tell you. It's half a second, and it's over, suffering's over, but anyway, modern technology, damn. This hospital was all right because I had one particular friend who came 5 to 6 days a week at 10 in the morning and sat in my room with me until 10 o'clock at night. We didn't talk about anything spiritual. We didn't talk about AA or 12 steps or work steps, or we just watched TV and watched basketball and talked about TV. But I was in a what do you call it, a single room, and so I was never lonely. I was never lonely. He was like always there for me. There was a couple of nurses in this hospital I hated. I actually would have done physically harm to them if I could have got up out of the bed. I was in a lot of depression, and then they got me up and put me in a wheelchair, and I lit up like a Christmas tree. I had wheels under me, man. Things are going to change. I can get around on my own, screw you. I don't have to ask you for anything anymore, and I've never been good at asking for help. And then they got me on a walker, bouncing up and down the hall in a walker. And I could put no weight at all on this side of my body, none. So I'd have two physical therapists, one on one side and the other on the other side with their foot under my foot, which is really awkward. I can't explain it to you. And then, bouncing down the hall on this walker, which was really exhausting. And then I got to experience something I've heard women talk about for years. And I never got it, I mean, they say, well, I'm overweight, I'm invisible, or I just, you turn 40 and you become invisible, or 50 you're just invisible. And I would listen to them and think, I couldn't get a hold of it. I could not get a hold of it. It didn't register. And Jim came to give me one day, it was my first day out of the hospital, on the walker, to go to a mall and go to LensCrafters and get my glasses fixed. I still had the ones on from the wreck. They were kind of like this, on my face. And I'm going through this mall in this walker. Now, in the past, when, I've been stuck with having to go to a mall, you usually see 8 or 10 good-looking women, and I smile. I appreciate beauty. I just think it's a great thing, beauty. And I'll smile, and they'll, maybe all but one will smile back, and it's just a little acknowledgement of each other, and that's all, and you go on. And I must have smiled at 10 women, and not one of them saw me because of the walker. I hope that's a true meaning of sympathy, because if it's not, you suck, whoever made the noise. I have never felt so horrible in my life as that just being invisible. You're not there, you don't count. There's other people around, other things around that are more important. I'm glad I experienced it, because now I understand it, and I make it a point now when I see anybody in a wheelchair or a walker to make eye contact with them and acknowledge them and say hi. Just acknowledge that I know you're there. Hi. I don't have to get into a long, drawn-out conversation. Don't have to be a big deal of any kind. Just hi. That's all it takes. Well, as much as I hated this hospital, they came to me one day and they said, we're going to move you to another hospital. And I went into an absolute panic attack. Complete, total, full-blown panic attack. I didn't want to be moved. I couldn't stand change anymore. I didn't want to meet new people. I didn't want a different room. I didn't want a different TV. I didn't want a different bed. I didn't want to be taken further away from home, because I was in Encino, which is close to home, and they were going to take me to Pomona, and I didn't want to go. I think they gave me some medicine, and that didn't work, and they gave me a shot. I was just gone. I'm bipolar anyway, and I really was off the other end, completely into outer space. And then the social worker comes in the room and says to me, the liaison nurse who's coming to look at your records and is going to, talk to you about Casa Colina was the hospital, wants you to know she knows you from the program. I just relaxed. I'm okay. That's God talking to me. I perfectly loud and clear. She knows me from the program. I'm supposed to be going there. So I'll go there. So I went there. And when I got there, I was on my 8th set of orthopedic surgeons. And with all my screaming internally and yelling about Arrowhead Hospital, without exception, and I mean this, without exception, every one of these surgeons said the guy that did my hip at Arrowhead was a genius. I wasn't exactly the hospital I was supposed to be in, under the surgeon's hands I was supposed to be under. I just finally saw a picture of my hip 3 weeks ago. I hadn't want to look at it. And it was, man, he's got pins in there and angles I guess nobody ever thought of. But they're working, I was good. So, I've had the right surgeon. I now got a nurse who's on the program who's moving me to this other hospital, and it was cruel, let me tell you, man. The nurses were great. The doctors were great. All the physical therapists were young, and they wanted to be physical therapists. That's why they were there. They weren't there because they were doing it as a part-time job while they become a nuclear scientist. They were there because they wanted to be a physical therapist. And they were great, and they were the first ones that ever asked me anything. And they said, "What's your goal?" And I said, "I'd like to leave here on a cane." Because by now we knew I wasn't going to have to spend my life in the wheelchair, but we thought I was going to have to spend it on a walker. And they looked at me, the four that were going to work with me, and said, "You stick with us. You do what we tell you to do, and you'll leave here on a cane." And I thought, all right. You know, I mean, this is kind of like ACA, you know, my parents did the best job they could, but it's criminally punishable in a court of law, you know. So they're responsible for how I turned out, but I'm the one that's responsible to fix it, you know. I mean, that's basically how that little number works. My mother was a child batterer. She'd be in prison today if she did to me in 1990 what she did to me in 1937. So it's like, if I do what they say, you know, you're giving it to me. You're personal responsibility. You know, that's what the 9th step has always been about to me. Making amends, personal responsibility. And my amends were terrible. And I had to take my sponsor with me on a couple of them because there were some very bad issues I had to deal with. I had to deal with a couple of people that were going to be partially crippled for the rest of their life because of me and what went down. And they weren't glad I'd found AA either. It was not, you know, a warm, fuzzy amend. But as my sponsor had been Boss Con in Folsom for 15 years, they didn't say anything. He took care of me when I needed it the most. So I start doing what they tell me, and I'm getting stronger, and I'm in the gym, and I'm working out with the weights. And finally, I've got the two things I want more than anything else in the world, which is a can of Diet Coke and a cigar. And I had this beautiful patio in this hospital. I mean, really, truly a beautiful patio with trees and flowers. Huge fountain that ran all the time. It was glorious. And I would go out there all the time after my physical therapy and sit in a wheelchair and drink Diet Coke and smoke cigars and read a book. And what blew my mind was the hospital was full, and sometimes I'd sit out there 3-4 hours and not see another person. They just stayed inside. You know, I could never understand that. And so I'm sitting in my chair one of those days, and I have always been one who has never done enough spiritually. Now I want you to know I've gone through periods of time where I have gotten up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditated for 4 hours until 8 a.m. I have been to retreats, to ashrams, just the whole thing, man. But it's never been enough. Because I have never felt like I said the right prayer at the right time. I never felt that I'm driving up the coast, I see the ocean, it's beautiful, but I got to get somewhere, so I keep driving. So if I was really spiritual, I wouldn't have kept driving. I would have stopped, and I would have gotten out, and I would have sat on the fender of my car, and I would have drank in the beauty of God's ocean and let it just fill me up, you know, if I was really a good, true, spiritual person. And I mean, I have done that stuff to myself for 30-some years of recovery. It's been a continuous part of my spiritual program. Never enough. Never, never enough. I'm sitting in the wheelchair in the patio with my cigar. This was a Cuban somebody had brought me. It was particularly nice. Breaking the law. Having my Diet Coke. Knowing that I was healing. And knowing that I was going to leave on a cane. because I'd already tried it, and I knew I was going to be able to do it. And I thought to myself, in this entire period of time, I have said 2 prayers that maybe, at the outside, were 10 seconds long. I have meditated once, maybe for 5 seconds. And yet here I sit. I am alive. I'm supposed to be dead. I am healing. My hip is healing. I'm on a cane, and I got it. It came over me like a warm blanket. The first thing I thought of was the prayer footsteps. And I thought of grace. I am alive by the grace of God. And I had nothing to do with it. Nothing. It had nothing to do with saying the right prayer, meditating for the right period of time, going to the right ashram. Nothing. I just was beaten into submission. And by grace, I'll probably get rid of the cane around Christmas. You see? And I had nothing to do with it. Nothing. So now that I get that's the real power of God. I didn't pick Arrowhead Hospital. I didn't want to go to Arrowhead Hospital. You know, I didn't pick Casa Colina. I didn't want to go to Casa Colina. You know what I mean? All these things that happened directly as a result of a loving God. That's it. That's it. I got nothing to do with it. Well, if that's the case, then what the hell am I worried about? Ever. What do I worry about? Well, I have had a few problems in the past. One was matrimony. I've been married 7 times. That's a very expensive habit, let me say. Oh boy, that one broke my ass. Oh, Jesus. You know, but I'm a product of the 50s. Nobody lives together in the 50s. Nobody lives together in the 50s. You got married, you know? So I bring that mentality with me into relationships with women as crazy as I am. Like, you know, I'm a battered child by a woman, so needless to say, I have an immense amount of covert anger towards women, or used to have. I worked through it, you know, most of it. I worked through it. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, we are filled with a lot of women that have a lot of covert anger towards men. So, you could have a large ballroom with 2,000 people in it, and I could spot her clear across the ballroom. And we would run for each other like there was no tomorrow. Because we both knew the same thing. When the anger's covert, it comes out sexually. So you're, you know, banging plaster out of the wall with people's heads, busting furniture, caving in automobile hoods, getting carpet burns, and all under the guise of making love. You know? I love you. Hold still a minute. I'll get your head out of the wall. I'm also task-oriented. Obviously. Which means basically I have no value as a human being if I'm not doing something. Okay? It's that simple. If I'm not doing something, there's no reason for me to be here. I have no value to you. I have no value to God. I have no value to anybody in the house. So let's say I walk to the refrigerator in my house and I open it up and I look and I say, well, there's no milk. Close the refrigerator door and say, well, you know what? I'll go to the store and get some milk. Now, so far, this is the epitome of mental health. I have identified a problem, and I have identified a solution to the problem. So I'm okay. Now, here's where we get in trouble. I look at my watch and say I got to be back by 4. I don't have to be back by 4. I don't have any place to go till 6. But if I'm going to have any value as a human being, I'll be back by 4. I have now put myself in the position of doing 65 and a 35, parking my car in the fire zone at the market, winding up in the 8 items or less line behind some human being with their checkbook out and 40 items, who I'm going to back over in the parking lot. So I'm completely berserk, because if I don't get home by 4, that's it. I'm done. And I do all these little things to myself. There's nobody else saying, come home at 4, darling. You know, I'm living alone, me, myself, and my dog, you know, and I'm out there raving mad, homicidal in the supermarket and the, you know, quick express checkout line about to kill some poor old lady, you know, just completely crazed. So the only way in my sobriety it has ever been possible for me to make deep spiritual surrenders is I must be physically stopped. I'm serious. Now we got, okay, I got it, the car accident. I don't know what the lesson is, but I got it, that I was physically stopped, you know what I mean? I get it that something's coming. I get it, I'm here for a reason. I got it all. I understand all of it. I just don't happen to know at the moment what it is. People say, well, you're probably supposed to write that book. You know the book. I say, no. No, I don't know that book. I don't know. I have no idea. You know, keep speaking and being a rebel and just making people so mad they change colors by doing nothing more than sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and telling my truth. I tell you my truth, and you go home and, you know. And opinions. I mean, so I would share some opinions at an AA meeting, and some poor guy would go home and be pacing the floor at 3 o'clock in the morning wanting to kill me. And on my drive home, I'd be thinking to myself in the car, why in the hell did I say that? I don't believe that. You know. This guy's ruining his whole night, man. I'm just like, well, I wonder why I said that. I can't believe it. I have been physically stopped by being physically injured. That's how I became a writer. A very successful television writer, and I was thrown out of high school in 10th grade. And I do mean asked not to return to the Los Angeles City School System. Can't spell, phonetic speller. Fail English with the greatest of ease. I might as well do this. This is a little more God here. I made it a point in early sobriety to never know what anybody did for a living. I never asked, because I knew I would use it. I knew that if Mike was the plumber and Phil was the banker, and Mike and Phil both wanted to go for coffee after the meeting, Mike's screwed, you know? I'll do my own plumbing, but I never know when I'm going to need Phil the banker. So I made sure I just didn't know what people did. And I break my back on a freak accident at work. What happened is I might as well tell the whole story, I guess. I was back in Denver. I'll make it really quick. I was back in Denver, Colorado at a young people's convention. We had our car break down. This guy came to take us and the 3 of us guys and 3 girls out to his house, which is this incredibly gorgeous home in Cherry Hills. And I had always known there was a secret here. A secret that some people found that I couldn't find. I am, as much as I hate to admit, one of those who read the book with a black light. Okay? looking for the secret in invisible ink. But that's how convinced I was that it was there, that there was something I wasn't finding. So we're sitting around in this guy's house, and we're sitting around the kitchen table. I'm 4 years sober. I'm coming up on number 5. I'm working as a die caster. I don't have a car. Just prior to that, I'd been working in a car wash for $1.25 an hour. I had started at $1.35. I just, I started in the soap ends, washing, and you got to remember that I was really, I don't even like to say anything about it now, but I was not a good human being. I was a very evil human being, and hurt an awful lot of people. And image is important when you are insane, and you are, in fact, bad. And I broke out in a rash from the detergents. That's certainly manly enough. So I had to be moved off to the drive-off inn, where now I got to take like quarter tips from people. You have no idea. You have no idea what taking a quarter tip meant to me. How much it warmed my heart. So, but now I'm a die caster, I'm okay, and I'm making pretty good money, and I'm working at this place, and I'm back in Colorado, and we're in this guy's house, this gorgeous house, sitting around this big oak table, and he looks at me and he says, and he's Charlie Snowshoes. The guy's never had a bad day in his life. He's one of these that passed out on the 18th green at the Annandale Country Club and got sober, And he looks at me and says, I was really glad to hear you talk about drugs. I said, what on God's earth does Charlie Snowshoes in Denver, Colorado want to know about dope? Unless he's got a kid locked in the closet or something that's out of control. I said, why? He said, well, I'm a drug addict myself. He said, I'm a 3-time loser from the state of California. I was in Quentin twice and Folsom once. He said, I came here to Denver 2 days over, when I was 2 days over 4 years. I was 2 days sober. That was 4 years ago, and I was 2 days sober. The mother here, Pony's wife, was working behind the counter in the clubhouse downtown serving food. Now, this is Skid Row Clubhouse. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, I have found the guy who's going to tell me the secret. We have a lot in common, he and I. I know it's not his money. I know it's not her money. She wouldn't have been working at this Skid Row Clubhouse. So I said to him, would you mind explaining all of this to me? He says, well, Mother and I go to a lot of meetings and we take the third step every morning. I laughed so hard I got hysterical. I cried. I was almost 5 years sober, and for the first time I heard the third step. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, period. I always missed the period. I always missed the period. I would turn over everything but relationships, money, and employment. Which I was 4 years sober, bankrupt, working in a car wash, so horny I couldn't even get anybody to go to coffee with me to talk about the third step. I looked mad. So I go to work the next day, and in a freak accident, I fall against one of the furnaces and crush 2 vertebrae in my back. They take me to the emergency hospital, and my back is pretty bad because I was the kind of person you came at from behind. And they said, well, you cannot stand for long periods of time again. You can't lift heavy things, and yada, yada, yada. And I walked out of this cubicle in the emergency room and left me alone there. And my head, which has always been supportive of me throughout my entire sobriety, says to me, see, I told you. Okay? Last night you surrendered to God. Today you wind up with a broken back. Let's do it again. Maybe we can wind up in a wheelchair. And for the first time in my life, I had this thought was like, you know what? As far as I know, breaking my back is a good deal. I mean, how the hell do I know? I have no idea. So I decided I would do what was put in front of me to do and show up. Stuff I've been hearing for years in AA. So I went to voc rehab. Oh my God, voc rehab. I didn't like them, they didn't like me, they kept giving me aptitude tests, I kept coming up different stuff, you know. I wasn't screwing with them. I was just being honest about how I felt that day, you know. One day you like the outdoors, one day you don't, you know. I mean, it's not a big deal, you know. So finally they decided they were going to send me to get me a GED, send me to 4 years of UCLA, get me a bachelor's in psychology, and I could become a social worker. And I had my jacket there. And I said, have you read that? It says in there that I am a homicidal social psychopath with an inability to function in a world that contains a free world, or in a world that, oh God, whatever it was, in a free world or incarcerated that contains people without reacting to that world with extreme violence. And I said, I've never heard of that as a prerequisite for social work. You know? And if you're missing the point, I don't like people. Okay? So I keep going every month, and I'm going home, and I keep going, I'm going home. And one night the TV guy, there's an ad that says, would you like to be a writer? And this voice, the cellular voice, and I'll tell you something about cellular voices in a minute, says to me, let's try that. My head, of course, immediately says, never mind what it said. It just trashed me completely. You know, you can't spell, you can't do it. So I went in and I gave my counselor this ad, and she laughed so hard she almost fell out of her wheelchair. Because she had my whole jacket. She knew I couldn't spell. She knew I didn't know, you know, my sentences were ending in dangling something or others, or, you know, I mean, she knew that it was a joke, you know. But God had outwitted the Van Nuys office of vocational rehabilitation, because I was a black mark. I'd been on the roll 6 months and they hadn't been able to do anything with me. This guy she said, we don't pay for correspondence courses. This guy would have paid for basket weaving for me, you know, if he could have got me the hell off his rolls and out of his office, right? So he says, we'll pay for the course, send him home. So they sent me home, I got my books, I sat down, I tried to write a short story, it was terrible, I put it away. Then I tried to write, it said, I was reading my books, and it said, write for a medium you're familiar with. And I thought, well, I haven't read anything, but I've certainly logged a lot of hours in front of television. So I tried to write a bonanza. It was equally bad. Well, I mean, the idea was good, but I tried writing it with dialects for the Chinese cook and stuff, and it was bad. It was really bad. But I read on in my books, and it said, write about something. You should not only write for a medium you're familiar with, you should write about a subject you're familiar with. And I thought, well, crime. You know, I know a lot about crime. So I started watching all the police shows, picked the one I thought was the best, which was Ironsides, because he was, like, smart. You know, and I thought, okay, this is cool. So I'm working real hard on this story for Ironsides, and this friend of mine, you'll meet him tomorrow, he'll be doing the 12th tradition and doing the traditions, Jim Miller. Jim drops me off at home. We're about 6 months, a month apart, sobriety. A year and a month. He says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to write a story for television. He said, really? He said, that's what I do. I write for TV. I said, no kidding. He said, yeah. I said, if you want me to read it when you're done, I will, you know, give you some pointers. Well, I call all these people Eskimos. They're provided, you know, I don't have to do anything. They just show up. What I make use of what they're bringing to me is where my free will comes in. I can either allow God to be the power in my life and let this Eskimo bring into my life what they have been put there to bring into my life, or I can blow them off. I always have that option. So I finished the story, I give it to him to read. He was about 12 things he didn't like, and I changed 6 of them. I didn't change the other 6, which I later found out was just writer's, choice. He said, would you like to have a girl type this up for you? And I said, yeah, actually, I would. I don't think Universal knows that dead is spelled D-E-D. He says, well, I've got a girl on the program who types up my stuff for me. I said, that's great. I'd like to see the money go to somebody in AA. So he gives it to her to type, and for 3 days I go completely insane trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to get this to a studio or an agent or an advertiser. I'm berserk. You got to see me when I'm in this state. I mean, I hold my breath a lot. I move fast. I injure myself continually, because I try and do things too quick, and I shove the screwdriver through my thumb. It's just madness while I'm thinking about how I'm going to solve this problem. Somewhere I haven't killed myself in that process. After about 3 days, this girl calls me up and she says, hey, I just finished typing your story. I read it. She says, it's really very good. She said, did Jim tell you where I work? And I said, no, why? She said, well, I work for Ironsides. She said, I'm secretary to the associate producer. Would you like me to take the story in for you? I guess I could have said no, but I said yes. And that was the beginning of 30 years of writing for me. Good years. Eskimos. I had been physically stopped. The flu will do it. I mean, you don't have to break bones. Just stick me in bed for 4 days, sick as a dog, and I will surrender. It's like the old thing, there's no pain in change. Absolutely none. No pain in change. The pain is in the resistance to the change. The minute you say, oh, fuck it! Pardon me. And although you might not approve of that from the podium, it's probably what you say when you're in the same state I'm in. At that moment, the pain is gone. The pain is gone. I have let it go. I have surrendered it to this power greater than myself to resolve this problem for me. I'm a miracle. I feel great. How can I not feel great? I come from the doctors yesterday. I have some walking bronchial pneumonia or bronchitis. I don't know what it is. But coming from where I'm coming from, it's like, who the hell cares? It's a cough. Not a particularly big deal. Everybody, it seems like there's a lot of complaining about what's being said in AA. People are saying this, people are saying that. And I've always been of the belief that it's not what's being said here, it's what's not being said here. We all drink over our feelings, so why aren't we talking about them at meetings? Why are not feelings being expressed? I'll tell you why. Because you'll hear things like, or you'll be accused of whining. And doesn't mean it's a bad person. It just means they come from a home where, nobody expressed their feelings. They don't get it. They don't know what's going on. But, it's like, and we have opinionated people here that some of them we're going to get armbands for. They're a little dangerous. We want you to be able to identify them. Like I said, I am bipolar, and I take medications for what's wrong. If you've ever been clinically depressed, don't talk to me, okay? And I can tell in a hot second whether or not you've ever been clinically depressed. Because I will say to you, I'm depressed, and you'll say, what about? I already know you've never been clinically depressed. You know, I already know that, because you wouldn't ask that question if you had. If you'd locked yourself in your house for a month and hadn't taken a shower in 3 weeks, sat in the same spot on the sofa, you would know, what the hell clinically depressed is. And you would also know the miracle of the medications. I have 10 friends who would be alive today who killed themselves at gunpoint with over 10 years of sobriety had the medications that are available today been available then. But they had to die instead. And so, if you are thinking about, if you've not experienced this clinical depression, and I'm not talking about somebody that's upset because your relationship broke up, go take an aspirin for Christ's sake. But if you're dealing with somebody who's really clinically upset and you're thinking about telling them about getting off their medication, I would think it would be good of you to have at least minimum malpractice insurance, before you start with that stuff, because there's really no place for it here. I came into an AA and my sponsors, they embraced me. Sure, they were, according to society standards, they were murderers and terrible people, but they embraced me. They included me. It was an inclusive thing. They didn't exclude me. They didn't make me feel outside what's happening here. We throw people away with one of the simplest lines I've ever heard. Fred is drunk. What happened to Fred? Fred stopped going to meetings. That's not the end of it. There's another question that belongs there. Why? If he's got a terminal disease and he knows it and the answer is here, why the hell did he stop? Is there something we aren't offering him? Does he need more than we have? Which both Bill and Dr. Bob have said is highly possible. Why did he stop going? I think we have a responsibility when somebody we know isn't around for a little while to pick a phone up and call them and say, hey man, what's going on? How you doing? And maybe there's something they need that you can get them to help them. I don't have a watch. I have no idea what time it is or what time is it supposed to end, or 15 minutes. I wonder if I know any good jokes. Cellularly, I have sat for 30 some odd years. I mean, lately I don't do it anymore. No, God damn it, I did it today. Usually I don't do it anymore. I will be sitting at a table with people, and I will be so uncomfortable cellularly, I want to die. It's got nothing to do with what is being said. It has to do with the energy at the table. But I don't trust mine, so I stay and get more miserable. And I should get up and leave. And I do most of the time now. Unfortunately, today I stayed. Can't believe I did it. I never really understood cellularly until about 4 days ago. I was sitting in my favorite little coffee shop on the corner of Sawtell and Santa Monica in Los Angeles, having a triple espresso and a Dominican cigar, feeling good, cut back on my pain medication. We're working on that process. I've been on there's been some narcotic in my body ever since January, so now we're working on whatever, the shrink and the MDs on getting me off all this stuff without killing me in the process. And so I'm sitting there feeling really good. And then some woman in a little white car hits this woman in a big sedan, and the big sedan comes and hits the car headed the other way, and then the big sedan overreacts and goes right through the front of a Xerox store and parks about halfway in the middle of it. I saw the entire thing. What I saw didn't bother me.
what I felt, I relived my automobile accident in 5 seconds. It was the sound of the crunching of the metal and the breaking of the glass, and I was under the dash, and I was in extreme pain, and I could hear the fireman's saws cutting at the car, and I was being yanked out and put on the board, and I was having that stupid tube stuffed down my nose so they could feed me, the one I kept pulling out. And all that, I mean, it just trashed me. Completely. I was just like that. And it was from the noise. And it was cellularly. It was my body remembering. The body I don't trust. We passed an accident on the way out today. Same thing, same kind of accident as mine. Ambulances and fire trucks were there. But I didn't hear any of the noises. So I just kind of got a little weak and, a little sad for whoever it might be. But it wasn't like hearing those noises. So my body remembers. But as I was a child, I was taught not to trust my body. I was taught that what I felt was wrong if it didn't agree with the adults. And one of the critical things in sobriety for me is to learn to trust the cellular part of me that says, this is uncomfortable. Instead of saying, following up with, yeah, well, for you it is. Everybody else is okay. They're having a good time. Why are you uncomfortable? Well, I'm uncomfortable because I'm the only sane one at the table. They're all nuts, But I'm just saying that, but I am uncomfortable, and I should leave the table. I should have left today. I got really miserable listening to this conversation, and the energy at the table sucked because I think the other people were tired of listening to it, and nobody was leaving, So it was one of those things. And a friend of mine who's sober about as long as I am, he and I talk all the time about the one continuing battle situation to work on, whatever label you want to put on it, that we still find exists in our lives today, as long as we've been sober, as much work as we have done. And you have no concept of the inventories I have written, or the institutions I have traveled to, or the hundreds of thousands of miles and countries and shit I've gone to, and all that I've done, and yet shame is still the one battle I have to fight. And so does Tom. And we talk about it all the time. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. It doesn't matter if I just got a letter in the mail telling me it's the greatest script they ever read. I know they're going to find me out. I'm not enough. And yet now, I got a good deal. Because the last time that hit me about a week ago, I remembered sitting in the courtyard in the wheelchair, smoking my cigar, drinking my Diet Coke, having done nothing. Nothing. And I was alive, and I was supposed to be dead, according to the doctors. And I was healing. And I was going to be walking instead of in a wheelchair, according to the doctors. And so, I'm okay. You see? I don't have to be perfect. This may sound really stupid to you, but I worked for a year and a half to get a Sears credit card when I first got sober, because I thought if I could get a Sears credit card, God would love me. Not enough. Not enough. Apparently, based on my most recent experience, I'm enough. I'm enough. I did nothing, man, and here I am. I'm not exactly a tired, sure, like you'd like your own mean speaker to be, but it was short notice, and, we did what we could. About the only thing about my own outfit would have changed is I would have put on my good tennies, clean pair of Levi's, and a short sleeve shirt, and I would have shaved. But I don't think it really matters what anybody wears up here.
It's never been important to me. I just want you to tell me the truth. No matter how bad it embarrasses you, tell me the truth. Your truth is the only thing that's going to save my life. Your truth is the only thing that's going to lead me to my truth. And if we can both tell each other the truth, have we got some power. Thank you. God bless you very much.